Ladies and gentlemen, our next session, the time is now, Digital Transformation in Financial Services.
Thank you all for joining us. The time is now, Transformation in Financial Services. Before we get started, I'll do a quick bit of intros and then start off with an icebreaker for everybody. Very pleased to announce our panel, Casey Hurbis, Chief Marketing Officer of Rocket Mortgage, Nick Antonelli, Chief Marketing Officer of Bread Financial, Neej Gore, Data's Chief Data Officer, and Bryan Hipsher, Chief Financial Officer of Dun & Bradstreet. Guys, we all know what's happening right now in the financial landscape, whether it's the introduction of 5G, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Maybe as an icebreaker, we could start off with, and Casey, I'll lead with you to my left. I'm going to ask each panelist to share one humorous or outrageous prediction of what if AI controlled our wallet? What would happen in that scenario?
My wife would be totally out of control.
I like it.
I'm going to continue with that theme. As a father of four, I feel like there's a mysterious force already controlling my wallet. So I can't imagine that it's going to take those random Amazon purchases to the next level.
Neej?
I have this dystopian view of the future where you have financial advisors that have attitudes. So they're like, your retirement account is a joke. And they prod you into taking action.
That's nice. Bryan?
Yeah, I was going to stack on top. So I got, 2, 5, and 8, right? And so I figured that they'll be far advanced from where I am in the AI landscape. And so I think that ship's going to sail from a financial control perspective pretty quickly.
Awesome. All right, well, let's get into it. As CMOs and experts within your diverse sectors of financial services, why don't you speak about the challenges that you're seeing arising from the convergence of data-driven marketing, technology, and customer experience across each of your respective organizations? Maybe, Bryan, we'll start with you first.
Sure. And so, what's interesting, I think, is we've bookended, the two CFOs with the, CMOs and data officers wedged in between. But from our perspective, I think it's pretty interesting. One, Dun & Bradstreet is the kind of business-to-business, data provider, right, throughout the world. And so from that perspective, we really think about things from a responsibility, from a trust, perspective, and being that kind of linchpin that ultimately feeds up into, these generative AI models. And as we think about whether you're on the finance risk side of the equation or the sales and marketing side of the equation, having that consistency, having that entity resolution, having that discipline, it really keeps from those concepts of, drift or those concepts of hallucinations. And so, it's early stages, but I think, as we move forward, the amount of use cases, automation, efficiency, right, are really exciting, both internally to organizations, but externally in how you engage your clients and how you solve, their biggest problems, which for us always end in the same thing: more revenue, less expense, or reduce risks.
Casey, you want to go next?
Sure. I mean, I think about if I was at Zeta Live 1997, I was in the automotive industry for 25 years. I distinctly remember sitting in dealer meetings, scoffing and laughing at the notion that somebody would buy an auto online, right? And you look back on that and just think about 2010, probably the same meeting, Zeta Live 2010, where it's like, geez, how will mobile disrupt, the shopping behaviors of PC? And I think we're at another inflection moment right now. And depending where you are as an organization, certainly with us being in the fintech space, the two challenges I see is one is being properly organized and unsiloed within, right? As you think about data, tech, product, marketing, finance, risk management, the work that's being done probably a little too siloed right now. At some point, there's going to be a chief AI officer within organizations. But then along with that, because the speed of the game is so fast, like how are you organizing when you're ready to go, right? And whether you're a marketer or a product development, whatever it might be, it's here, right? It's here, and so how are we trying to organize, not for today, but tomorrow?
Yeah, at Bread Financial, we have a unique challenge. I was 18 years at JP Morgan Chase, and then at a startup for a couple years, joined Alliance Data, which is now Bread Financial. Core of our business is partners across a wide variety of verticals, from sports and entertainment and auto to big ticket. jewelry finance, furniture to specialty apparel, and really, we view technology and as a part of our transformation as a key enabler is not only do we have to keep up with financial services and the rapid evolution, we have to keep up with the evolution of all of those industries and verticals. So how technology can be an enabler to adapting to not only the regulatory and the macroeconomic environment, but to our over 100 brand partners, and then in the BNPL space, over 700 small businesses and merchants. So, having a solution that is scalable but adaptable, that allows us to go to market in a sustainable, repeatable way is critically important.
That's awesome. Neej?
So, as of this year, I think 40% of Americans don't use cash on a weekly basis. So that's up from about 25% just 3 years ago. This is happening. Consumer expectations are going up. So they want a more personalized experience, but they also want you to protect their data and do much more diligence in the way they handle your accounts. This is going to change the whole landscape, and I think at large, we're not ready to meet both challenges, right? New technologies need to exist. There need to be guardrails on the AI to actually accomplish this. And these are all the challenges we have to tackle in the next few years, and this is what's coming.
Bryan, I've had a chance to know you now for many years. And as I think about the disruption being caused in the financial services industry, if there was going to be an AI-generated image of Bryan and I, it'd be the 1988 movie poster of twins, I think. But in all seriousness,
with a little more muscle on my side, okay?
Someone run that through Stable Diffusion right now. Let's get it going.
Exactly. In all seriousness, so Zeta knows Dun & Bradstreet well, and they are a leader in B2B marketing and financial risk management. As you think about your business, how do you see machine learning and AI revolutionizing risk assessment and fraud detection?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept because, again, when we talk about AI, there's still quote-unquote old AI, right? Machine learning, the GPT-3, et cetera. We've been using this for a long time, right? When you're handling 500 million records, throughout the globe, pretty much every country except North Korea, we know sales and marketing, finance and risk decisions aren't that difficult there, right? So we've left that aside. But, as we think about it, it's interesting because there's a crossover, and you mentioned it, of this siloed concept, right? As sales and marketers, you want to spend your time, obviously, on high propensity, high probability sales, right? We think about that, generally through a firm first list. But then, when we think about our partnership and what we do from a business side of the equation, a consumer side of the equation, that ID graph, kind of being complete from that perspective, it's quite interesting because small businesses are generally very close to individuals, right? And so when we're thinking about how do we approach them, how do we monetize from that perspective, the last piece of it is exactly that. The fraud, the entity resolution, the ability to actually make the payments, right, and sustain over time. And so, the combination and the ability to utilize generative AI to really kind of take that to the next level, I think is quite interesting. And the last piece is this democratization from that perspective. I saw in one of the prior, Steve's presentation earlier, they showed the gap of, kind of low performers, right, and the ability to improve performance from that side versus high performers, and increasing from that perspective too. I think, really what's interesting is, how do you use things like chatbots, right, that are intelligent and can really consume, learn, and generate, context from that perspective. That really makes it a lot easier. I mean, imagine you're in Hoovers or you're on the platform and you're asking, hey, I sell, pepperoni. Who are the highest, probability pizza restaurants in the tri-state area that are going to buy my product? It's a lot easier than, clicking down, filtering, working through the data yourself. And so those are the things I think early on that are going to be game changers.
That's awesome. Nick, it was neat reading your background. You gave a brief bio of it, but almost 20 years at JP Chase, and then a number of disruptive companies within the fintech and financial services industry. Now you find yourself at Bread Financial. As a CMO of Bread Financial, can you share insights into your company's marketing strategies and brand messaging strategies that are adapting to the evolving fintech landscape, and how technology is playing a role in connecting with today's digital savvy consumers?
Yeah, so, machine learning and machine learning AI are at the core of really two things of how we're thinking about things, and working with Zeta as one of as our key partners is around given the nature of our business, both a core partner business as well as building a direct-to-consumer business, audience expansion, and how do we use and build models and use that from optimizing that audience, to the propensity and the responsiveness, but also in content personalization. And that's a big area of, given the breadth and diversity of our brands, how do we do that, again, back to my theme of at scale, while reducing expense and driving operating efficiency. How do we do that? And it has to be enabled through scalable solutions that are powered by AI machine learning, both from a modeling and a data science perspective, leveraging those signals from evolving from the traditional batch and blast push marketing to signal-based marketing that is meeting customers where they are in their financial journey, but is immersed in the brand and the experiences of our partner. And that's just really at the forefront of how we're thinking about our overall business transformation. We've invested since 2020 as a part of that transformation over $1 billion in acquiring Bread, a fintech, in digital and technology, and really reinventing who we are as a company while caring for our partners in our core business in new and different ways, and adding new ones like the NFL about 1.5 years ago, AAA less than a year ago. We're launching a cardless program with Dell Technologies in about 1.5 months. So really, it's just how do you, and then as everybody in the financial services industry, dealing with both the macroeconomic cycle, persistent inflation, and the regulatory environment, technology and AI and machine learning are at the forefront of how we're going to deal with that, right? How we're going to stay nimble and capitalize on opportunities together with our partners, as well as we build our brand and our direct-to-consumer business.
It's incredible. Those are major brands. Congratulations on those signings. That's pretty awesome. So Casey, besides having, up until this point, it was John Scully that had the best shoe game at Zeta Live. You have way surpassed him. Can I just say these are?
Thank you.
As a collector, those are pretty badass.
We one of the companies we own with the organization is StockX, and
I just bought.
I
for my
have
daughters
formed
there.
a
Yes.
pretty damn bad shoe habit the last few years.
Mine are from Costco.
They work.
So Bryan, Hipsher, and I have been angling. Which one of us is going to get the Pro-Am spot at the June Rocket
What's your
Mortgage?
handicap?
We're pretty even.
That's a lot of. I got a chance to play with Tiger Woods in 2017, and I suck. And I have never sweat through my clothes so badly in my life. It was the most horrifying experience in my life. But we'd love to have you up in Detroit at the Rocket Mortgage Classic.
Well, I would appreciate.
He was
that,
talking
Bryan,
to me, by the way.
All right, so Casey.
Yes, sir.
As the financial industry becomes increasingly digital and consumer-centric, how is Rocket Mortgage leveraging technological advancements such as AI and smart algorithms to not only streamline the mortgage process, but to also enhance the accessibility and personalization to mortgage services and a broader range of consumers?
Yeah, great question. I mean, a little bit of background. So our chairman and founder, Dan Gilbert, we have our principles and values. They're called ISMs. And one of the best isms that I can use to describe the journey that we're on relative to machine learning, generative AI, is you'll see it when you believe it. Within our organization, within Rocket Companies, we have over 100 plus companies in our portfolio. On the fintech side, Rocket Mortgage, personal loans with Rocket Loans, buy and sell a home with Homes, personal finance and credit card with Rocket Money. Oh, by the way, we're also in the sneaker game, in football helmets, and Lord knows, the Cleveland Cavaliers, we were just chatting background, how they're using AI. But if you think about the journey that we've been on and we're on, from a product standpoint, certainly if you think about the arduous, very difficult process of, refi is pretty simple, right? If you were to flow chart that out, do I qualify? Do I qualify? Can I save money? Let's go. Purchase, such an arduous process. We're America's largest retail lender. There are over 300 human touches on our loans during the course of a year. Right? And so how do you use machine learning, which we've been using for years, and AI to help minimize? One is it takes over 50 days in this country to close on on a purchase loan, right? And in the fast-paced world, we all want Uber in our lives, no matter what we do. So how do you use machine learning and AI to help, speed that process up, right? Asset income verification, whatever it might be. You could really go down a rabbit hole of where that leads over the next 3, 5, 7 years. I mean, I think that's where you're going to see a lot of bold predictions along the way. And then as a marketer, we're primarily an in-house agency. I have 300 team members on the Rocket marketing team. We support 12 of our fintech brands, 25,000 assets, right? 1,400 videos. We're a full stack in-house agency. And so as I think about it from a media standpoint, we're fortunate. We're an always-on advertiser, full channel. And I just think over the last year and a half, certainly the market has dictated it, but the old days of setting the upfront and then looking at it every quarter. I mean, we are literally media mix modeling and adjusting almost on a weekly basis at this point, with not only performance, which is the bulk of our spend, but on brand, right? And especially as we go from mass to one-to-one in personalization. And from a creative standpoint, 25,000 assets. There's no reason with the same creative team I have, which is about 80 team members, I'm not doing 50 or 75,000 creative assets, especially as we get into one-to-one personalization. A great example I have is this past summer, my intern, who was absolutely clueless. And he joined me, and on his second day there, I was like, hey, bud, do you know what ChatGPT is? He was like, yeah, I've heard of it. And I said, well, when you go home tonight or this weekend, cancel your plans, I'm going to send you a link. One is ChatGPT, and then I'm sending you 4 creative AI tools. I've seen them in my feed. I scroll. I don't have time. Here's my credit card. I want a video on Monday. Wow. And the reason I share that with you is here's this young man, never been in marketing, a professional environment, and in 3 minutes, he ended up doing it for the Rock Mortgage Classic, our golf tournament, a 1.5 minute script. He uploaded some images and logos, and he created, the video was horrible, but like a talking AI character avatar. And so I literally went into my creative director's office, and I threw my phone on the table, and I said, I never want you to tell me it's going to take 3 weeks to get a simple video. This young man here just did it in 3 minutes, figure it out. And 2 days later, I had a full end-to-end Rocket Mortgage commercial, 100% built on AI. And, and so I think as a marketer, what I'm excited about is, we haven't even begun to scratch. Yeah, for sure. We're just kind of floating our fingers around a lot of stuff and just, sandboxing, playing around. So I'm super geeked and excited.
That's an awesome story. We should definitely do that with some of our interns, Neej. As you think about as you think about serving as Zeta's Chief Data Officer, and you have an incredible, unique perspective in terms of what you and your team have built, one of the largest data clouds in the world, built on first-party identity, proprietary data. And we're starting to verticalize those now. I know you've done some research ahead of the panel on some interesting data points that you found through mining that data cloud around transformation of financial services. Maybe just expand upon that and some of the ones that you found to be most interesting or at least thought-provoking.
So I think Arthur C. Clarke has a quote. He says, any advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So let's start with that in mind, and that's the end point we're trying to get to. So I think something like 60% of banks and financial companies are now investing heavily in AI over the next 5 years, as you might expect. One thing I think is less understood is with the 5G revolution that's coming, there are 2 concepts that are very important to keep in mind. One is edge computing, and the other is IoT. And you've probably heard IoT, your devices in your house that are Wi-Fi enabled. But think of an ATM that has entirely enabled to make a fraud detection decision in real time. So you can start to distribute much of the AI processing power from a central environment to a decentralized environment, where the decisions are getting made, where consumers are interacting. That's going to push the entire ecosystem further. And I don't know what's going to happen with the financial branch, like your local branch, in a few years, but I think they have an opportunity to reinvent how that works and create incredible experiences because of this trend that's happening around 5G and around distribution of AI to local endpoints.
Wow. That's fascinating. As we wrap, one final question for each panelist. In a blink of an eye, it's hard to believe we're going to be halfway through the decade. As you sit here today, I'd be curious to get each of your kind of most bold predictions as to what the financial world is going to look like in 2030 driven by all of what we've been discussing today, where there's 5G, machine learning, large language models, artificial intelligence. Feel free to start wherever. You could be Casey, and you feel free to jump in. We'll just take it from there.
Two words come to mind for me. One is, I don't know if you're going to need a CMO in 7 years. That's the first thing you always ask yourself. I mean, that's like the. I was at meetings with Google yesterday and with other CMOs in the financial sector, and I was like, let's just throw the elephant out in the room. Like, are you going to need me in 7 years? And thankfully, I'm more on the retirement side than years ago.
Easy for you to say. Bad for your predecessor.
But the two words that come to mind to me is velocity and diversity. Right. Simply, is again using our rocket as an example in very complex financial decisioning. Like, I'm not going to give you a prediction of how many days it will take to close, but it ain't going to be 50, right? And then how are those loans closed? And then the velocity, again, I think from a marketing standpoint, that's what I'm so excited about, of like the real-time personalization, synthetic audiences. The world of A/B testing is just it's just moving so fast, and what I'm trying to get our team's head around, because you got to start at the very core. It's educating, but you got to bring people along the way, and you've really got to figure out today, do you have the right people in the right seats? Because that bus is flying down the road.
That's awesome. Nick.
So as a father of 4, and they range from ages 11 to 18, I hope the role of the CMO lasts longer than 7 years, because I would be in my early 60s when my youngest enters college. So, I touched on Dell and launching a cardless credit card. My prediction is by 2030 we'll be plasticless in terms of giving businesses and consumers embracing an acceleration of digital payments and the ecosystem that's building, and it also aligns with ESG, right, and sustainable and responsible business practices. So a lot of, our thinking, and then it comes down to how do you deliver exceptional products, services, capabilities at the lowest cost. There is a lot of cost in the credit card industry around the production, the fulfillment of the physical plastics, and how people's behaviors are changing rapidly, sort of stimulated by the pandemic, but that momentum and that exponential increase has. But there's a lot to figure out. But AI and machine learning, 5G will be at the forefront of how does the industry and consumer behavior and businesses and payments evolve with contactless NFC, digital payments of all types. Some that aren't even out there yet.
Yet alone where currency's going. So that's really interesting. Yeah. Neej?
In today's world, you can go and get a biometric scan and get a personalized health plan. So my vision of 2030 is very simple. I think every American will have the ability to get a one-to-one personalized financial plan. And they can start that when they're young. It can carry through their entire lives. It'll be like having an agent that's working just for you to help you maximize your retirement and your life savings and just your cash flow. So I think that is a vision that is coming for us. And in fact, I think it's really exciting if we do it correctly.
It's really neat. Bryan?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because I think we're very early on, right, in this whole journey from that perspective. And the one thing that comes to mind too that's interesting is this balance of like, where is all this data coming from? Where are these models learning? How are they learning? And so part of the side note is you mentioned proprietary data, which is a beautiful thing about the Zeta platform. Our proprietary data cloud, the same thing. The rest of this, we say, look, the next 2 years are probably going to be the next 20 years of litigation, right? And so, ultimately that's going to have to play itself out. But when I think about change of life, and how does it impact it from that perspective? I mean, look, automotive, right, is a perfect. I mean, the Detroit side, right? Those are human beings putting hands on building cars. Robotics, took over next, and now, it's similar within a work environment. I think, jokingly aside, the first question I asked was like, great, can I give it the 200-page, American Express contract and just ask it, what's the rev rec on this, right? Unfortunately, it's not there yet since it took like 8 times to pass the CPA. But, those are the types of things where the head start, right, from an efficiency perspective, it may not build the perfect video in 2 minutes, but if it gets you 80% of the way there, now you're talking about significant productivity gains. Is there always going to be a need for that human component of ideation and creation? Of course, right? Because these applications know what they know, learn what they learn from, but it's that ability to generate something new, creative, outside the box. That's always going to be the balance. Will routine tasks ultimately go away? I think a lot of them will. But will it continue to push up that pyramid of the high value? That's where it's going to ultimately drive us towards.
One of the things we didn't touch on is the ethics part of it, right? As well as I was reading an article a week or two ago about the engineers working on autonomous driving, true autonomous driving, are going to have to make life and death decisions, right? About whether, do you swerve and the driver's at risk versus more people at risk. Like, that blew my mind, right? I hadn't thought about it in that context. So obviously not as life and death as that, but the ethics and the policy around how we govern, how we manage machine learning and AI, just scratching the surface of that. And then how, as leaders and as a workforce, how we migrate from managers of process, best practices as marketers, to managers and leaders of machines, right? And then how does that change organizational design? How does that change, skill set, and really fundamentally change, how we think about, managing marketing and business at large?
One of the questions you have to ask of AI every time you look at a system is, what is the cost of being wrong? And depending on the use case that you're solving, there's a different price in being wrong. In healthcare, the cost is very high. In marketing, if you're doing retail marketing, the cost may be very low. Financial probably sits somewhere in the middle. And so that needs to be factored in with any kind of AI system you look at. And that's something that we don't have a good handle on yet, but it's coming.
It's a great point, because your initial side, if you think about what we're known for,
Yep.
It's the commercial B2B risk management side of the equation. The question is, the answer is no, right? I mean, those decisions, those models, they are critical. They're trained. We have 180 years, of experience in algorithms and data from that perspective. Can they help support? Can they drive use cases further? Can they help? Of course, right? But, to your point, this is where that itch to move quickly versus that, balance to move responsibly is really, really important, because you make a bad, credit decision, you make a bad lending decision, there's real ramifications from that perspective.
One of my favorite data points on Dun & Bradstreet, I may not get it right, but just to give you a sense of the history of the data that they have at their fingertips, was it 3, 4, maybe 5 U.S. presidents worked there?
4 U.S. presidents,
incredible.
including President Lincoln,
That's amazing.
which is the namesake of ABE, A-I-B-E, which is our overall AI strategy from
That's
that
very
perspective.
cool.
So,
That's very cool. Well, look, I will first thank you all. It was really good to meet you up until this point. You can blame the questions on the AI chatbot that I used. I actually typed in each one of their names and backgrounds, their area of expertise, and it generated a question for each of them today. So it was pretty cool. If you didn't like it, we'll go back to the human side next year. But really appreciate it. Thank you all. And I hope you all have a great rest of the conference.